Broly, the man born into power and hardships. Broly, like any other Saiyan, was born on the planet Vegeta. Not that one, the planet Vegeta, named after the king, Vegeta, whose son is the prince of all Saiyans, also Vegeta. Creativity beyond thinking. Anyway, he was born like any other Saiyan. This Saiyan has two origin stories, one of them being classic Z Broly, and the other one is the new Broly of Dragon Ball Super. Let's start with Dragon Ball Z's Broly, who has been criticized for having one of the dumbest origin stories in Dragon Ball history. Picture this, you're a baby chilling in your baby space pod. Life is peaceful. However, the person beside you does one of the most horrible things, one of the most vile and criminal things to you. He cries. Like a lot. That person was named Kakarot, son Goku. Yep, that's his origins. Goku, his anger against the Z Fighters is because of Goku used to cry a lot as a baby when he was young. Easy to understand the criticism now, isn't it? As for Super Broly, he left planet Vegeta after it exploded, became a refugee of a random planet, fought a monster, it became its pet, Broly became happy, Dad killed the pet, Broly became sad, and then the dad tortured Broly with a neck bracelet. Oh, and he wears the pet's ear as dope trip. So Broly has major PTSD from all this experience. The Broly I want to talk about is the Dragon Ball Super adaptation. The power of a legendary Super Saiyan. If you don't watch Dragon Ball somehow, let me brief you on what a legendary Super Saiyan is. It's meant to be a once in a lifetime anomaly of a transformation that boosts the power of a Saiyan immensely. Not like the Super Saiyan God transformation or the Super Saiyan. This one has green hair and is pretty rare compared to the others. Now that might sound crazy because of the red hair and the yellow hair took so long to get, but the legendary Super Saiyan only comes once in a millennia. You can gather 5 Saiyans that are pure of heart, and a Saiyan can become a Super Saiyan given that they are fighting for a right cause. But there is only one Broly every once in a millennia, and that makes him more rare. Broly's legendary power ties into his traumatic past, as the only reason he didn't go with Vegeta, no, the prince, was that King Vegeta was jealous or even worried of Broly's power, which was greater than Vegeta's at birth, causing them to be sent to a stormy planet for decades. There Broly would be hurt physically, emotionally, and mentally. Inside of Broly's mind. Broly is one of the most complex characters in Dragon Ball, and that's something people don't really talk about. This being the case due to his many psychological challenges he faced during his childhood and even adulthood. It's not 100% known whether the events in the show made him suffer psychological damage or even bitterness, or whether Saiyans can feel such mental illnesses, or whether the anatomy of the Saiyan brain is similar to human brains is the things that we don't know. However, there are things we already know based on the show. We can theorize on what their brains are like based on the analysis of Goku, Vegeta, and the other Saiyans. For the most part, they are seemingly close to humans, other than some quirks like Saiyans liking feisty humans, which I hear Homo sapiens don't. However, I can't find any valid proof of this in any articles. Saiyans seem to have similar IQ levels, EQ levels, awareness, and practically none of them suffer from any mental illnesses. But I would argue Broly definitely does. Isolation. Broly was stranded in a wasteland of a planet for his whole life and had no friends at all, like literally nothing. Without his dad, he had no one to talk to or to interact with. Until he met Ba. Initially, the monster was meant for training, with him having to dodge all of his attacks. However, they soon developed a friendship and became close. Paragus, Broly's father, saw it was interfering with his training, so he cut its ear off, making the only friend Broly had run off, and he was left alone, taking its ear on his waist as a reminder. Symptoms of isolation are profound boredom, poor eating habits, poor sleep habits, and poor personal hygiene. However, Broly has shown no instance of suffering any of these effects, except for maybe poor hygiene. I'm pretty sure it does smell bad. No way they have soup on that planet, be honest with yourselves. PTSD is a mental disorder that people like to think that Broly suffers from. This especially after all the things that happened to him, not only in childhood, but at adulthood as well. Disclaimer, I am not a registered psychologist, I am just some YouTuber making videos about anime characters. In Broly's case, I don't think he suffers from PTSD. Bear with me, I have my reasons for saying this. First are the symptoms. People with PTSD show such symptoms as nightmares, avoiding reminders of the past, negative thoughts about oneself or the world, self isolation, anger and irritability, hypervigilance, feeling alone and detached from others, angry outbursts, and trust issues. First, let's rule out the symptoms that don't apply to Broly, like nightmares and negative thoughts about self or the world. I rule these out because we don't know what happens in Broly's mind due to the lack of internal dialogue. As for the others, like hypervigilance, self isolation, anger and irritability, angry outbursts, they could be applicable to Broly. However, I actually disagree. Why? I know it might sound strange, but hear me out. For starters, hypervigilance might be a result of the environment. We see him become more easily relaxed when he starts talking to Chilia and Lemo, so it's not something completely embedded into his mentality. And for isolation, or rather self isolation, here it's referring to intentionally distancing himself socially and physically from others, which is just not true. Broly clearly wanted a friend and people who would trust him and be with him. That's why he wanted to be with Chilia and Lemo and his father, even though he didn't trust them, excluding his dad. And for the angry outbursts and anger and irritability, they are very well justified. Think about when Broly got mad. It was when he was fighting Goku and Vegeta and when he saw his father dead. That's a reasonable outburst, not to mention how easy it was for him to calm himself when Chilia touched the ear of his friend. Broly was quick to get angry but calmed himself afterwards, unlike going full legendary Super Saiyan and slaughtering everyone on the spot. Trauma. I think this is fairly obvious, but I wanted to be very clear as to what I think is actually inside Broly's mind and how it works, and explain the psychology of his mind rather than just spout out random assumptions. Now, let me be clear, I am not a registered psychologist, I am just someone who is willing to do a lot of research. Now, on with the video. Broly would most likely suffer from chronic or acute trauma based on all the things we've seen in the movie. He was tamed with the shock collar all his life, a painful thing to experience, especially for a prolonged period of time. This alone would prove indefinitely that he has trauma. But not only that, the separation of him and Ba and the death of his father could have given him acute trauma. Broly's father was not the best person to him. I mean, he's basically the man who tortured him and is the main reason we are theorizing that he has trauma in the first place. But nonetheless, he is Broly's father and a very important person to Broly. Broly loved his father. He was the only person he had throughout his entire life. From birth, Broly knew one man who would love him, and that was Pericus. Losing him must have felt like losing everything. At the very least, losing a part of himself, and that hurts someone forever. Or is that the case? Rebirth. Some things can hurt us, stray us down, defeat us, and that changes us for the better or for the worse. We are who we choose to be because of a multitude of reasons. It could be the world that surrounds us, the people that surround us, the events that transpire around us. But the most important thing is the mindset we carry toward all the things that happen. We choose the way we perceive the world. We choose who to surround ourselves with. We can decide how events can affect us internally, and the most important part is we can decide whether we change in the face of those challenges. Broly is a very interesting character because of he's an open book. We don't know what route he will take now that he can, now that he is not restrained by others around him and can choose his actions for himself. Now he can actually decide who he wants to be and be with. He's free to become a new Broly. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. That's a reasonable outburst. That's a reasonable outburst.